in front of a massive, high-tech vault. Inside, you expect to see the gold of nations, the printed bills of the US Treasury, and the ledger of the Federal Reserve. But when the doors swing open, the vault is empty. Not because the money is gone, but because the real money, the stuff that actually moves the world, was never there to begin with. For decades, we've been told a specific story about money. We're told that the Federal Reserve sits at the top of the pyramid, turning the dials of the global economy, printing dollars to keep the world spinning. It's a comfortable story. It makes us feel like someone is in charge. But it's a lie. The truth is much stranger, and far more dangerous. There is a ghost financial system operating in the shadows, entirely outside the jurisdiction of any government or central bank. It's called the Eurodollar market. And despite the name, it has absolutely nothing to do with the European euro. It is a private, offshore web of dollar-denominated credit that has become the true engine of global trade. Think of it this way: if the US dollar is the blood of the global economy, the Eurodollar system is a secondary, unregulated circulatory system that is twice as large as the original. And the most shocking part: the people we think are in charge, the Fed, have almost zero control over it. To understand how this secret system works, we have to go back to the aftermath of World War II. After the war, the US dollar became the world's reserve currency. Everyone needed dollars to trade. But during the Cold War, the Soviet Union had a problem. They had millions of US dollars from selling gold and oil, but they were terrified that if they kept that money in American banks, the US government would freeze their accounts. So, they did something brilliant. They moved their dollars to a bank in London. These were US dollars, held in a European bank, outside the reach of the US Federal Reserve. The Eurodollar was born. Soon, other banks realized the genius of this. If a bank in London or Tokyo holds a deposit in US dollars, they aren't bound by US banking laws. They don't have to keep reserves. They don't have to follow the Fed's interest rate rules. They can lend those dollars out, and then those borrowers can deposit them again, creating a cycle of credit creation that is virtually infinite. This isn't just a technicality. This is the birth of private money. When a bank in London lends dollars to a company in Brazil to buy equipment from Germany, no physical cash ever moves. No real dollars are printed. It is simply an entry on a digital ledger. These are ghost dollars. They exist only as a promise between banks. By the 1960s and 70s, this system exploded. It became the plumbing for everything. Oil, gold, tech, shipping, it all runs on Eurodollars. Because these banks can create credit without reserve requirements, they can create much more money than traditional banks. Experts estimate the Eurodollar market is worth upwards of $20 trillion to $50 trillion. To put that in perspective, the total amount of physical US currency in circulation is only about $2.3 trillion. Most people believe the Fed prints money. In reality, the Fed only creates bank reserves, a specialized type of money that only commercial banks can use. The actual money that you use, and that corporations use to build factories, is created by private banks through the Eurodollar system. Why is this a secret? Because if the public realized that the most powerful currency on earth is actually a private, unregulated ledger system run by international bankers, the illusion of government control would vanish. This hidden system is also the reason why global financial crises happen so suddenly. Because the Eurodollar market relies entirely on trust between banks, if one bank stops trusting another, the ghost dollars vanish instantly. This is what actually happened in 2008. It wasn't just a housing crisis in America, it was a collateral crisis in the Eurodollar market. The plumbing got clogged, and the ghost dollars evaporated. The Federal Reserve tried to step in, but they realized they were powerless. They couldn't print their way out because the Eurodollar system is offshore. They had to set up swap lines, basically emergency pipelines, to beg foreign banks to keep the system alive. Think about the implications. We live in a world where the price of your groceries, the interest on your mortgage, and the stability of your retirement fund are dictated by a system that technically doesn't exist under any law. But here is where it gets even deeper. Because the Eurodollar system is the only way for developing nations to get the currency they need for trade, they are forced into a trap. They borrow ghost dollars from offshore banks. When the US Fed raises interest rates, it causes a dollar shortage in the Eurodollar market. Suddenly, countries like Argentina, Turkey, or Egypt find that the dollars they need to pay back the debts have disappeared. It is a form of invisible colonization. By controlling the ledger of the Eurodollar, the elite financial institutions of London, New York, and Hong Kong control the lifeblood of every nation on Earth, all while remaining invisible to the average voter. So, what does this mean for you? First, it means the inflation you see isn't just about government spending. It's about the expansion and contraction of this offshore credit bubble. Second, it reveals that the global economy is far more fragile than we are led to believe. It is a house of cards built on digital ledgers that no one truly monitors. And finally, it shows that the real power in this world doesn't reside in the White House or the halls of Congress. It resides in the silent, flickering screens of the world's largest banks, where trillions of dollars are birthed and destroyed every single day without a single vote being cast. The next time you hear a politician talk about the economy, remember the vault. Remember that the real money isn't there. It's out there, in the shadows, a ghost currency running a ghost world.